Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Quorum Podcast. This is where academic medicine meets remote, austere, and resource-limited areas. Welcome back to the program. This is Aebhric O'Kelly. This week, we are again with Dr. Sam Slishman, who has many inventions on the market. He's been a guest on our podcast and continues to push for evidence-based medicine, and he creates interesting science projects to prove or disprove tourniquets, and he's basically on the cutting edge. Sam, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me again, Aebhric. Much appreciated.
So tell us a bit about yourself and what's keeping you busy.
I would say the thing that keeps me running the most are my two kids. I mean, I've got an 8 and a 10-year-old, and that's my main focus. I build things. I tinker a lot, and the slope of that is going up, in part because in April 2023, I did my last ER shift. I used to regularly do night shifts, and I just felt like I was going to crash. After a shift, I had an hour drive home, and so I decided I should stop doing that, and my head's always in building things anyway. So I spent a lot of time at home building this and that and doing a lot of different tests of, tourniquets and wraps and, working on the AirBase as well. And I've got a variety of other product ideas in my head. And so, those are the things. I guess videos too. It's an odd thing. I didn't really think that'd be my life, but little short clips for LinkedIn, Instagram, and the like. It's been fun and interesting.
Yeah, they do get out there. They go viral. Your little vignettes of science is fantastic. And I would be remiss, Sam, if I didn't give you appreciation as an SF guy, what you've done for Special Forces in your Slishman Traction Splint. So, I know it's ubiquitous now. I know it's out there, but you built a femur traction splint that doesn't poke out to the end of the foot, that is very compact, lightweight, and it's been within SF for many years, hasn't it?
Yeah. No, that's the product that has made this sort of life and existence possible, really. I mean, that got started in the late 90s, and it just keeps evolving. But I would still say the majority of people have never heard of it. A testament to how hard it is to market. Like, that's a really challenging thing.
Indeed. And before we talk about the AirBase, which you and I have been paramount on getting up and running, what other things are you inventing at the moment?
Well, I actually have a leash that is it's inspired by the traction splint. So in 2000, I treated a lot of patients at a ski hill. I was at the bottom of a ski hill, and regularly people came in with dislocated shoulders, and I was able to use my earlier version of the traction splint to help put shoulders back in. And I have kind of got the nugget out of it. You don't have to have a whole traction splint to put a shoulder back in, but it's essentially a leash. You put it around the wrist, and then extend your foot, and that'll help with self-reduction of shoulders. So I think that'll be a fun thing to get out there. Wow. The wrap has been a fun thing. I'm trying to I'm going to take the wrap and make a toe strap out of it, because I find that my favorite use of the pressure wrap is actually to tow my kids on their mountain bikes. So that's sort of an odd thing. There are a few other projects, harness. I'll show a lot of things to you at SOMA, actually.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And a lot of the work you're doing on proving what works with tourniquets. So you're making a lot of simulated limbs, and you're using different tourniquet options and different compression options to stop the bleeding. So what's your current research on what works and what doesn't?
Tourniquets it's such an odd thing, because people get very passionate about it. And so I the word itself has been around for a long time. And the more time goes by, the more I'm convinced that people really either they get applied incorrectly or inappropriately. And so I'm a direct pressure advocate as much as possible. Like I'm for the tourniquet for the setting of, get you off the X, but then I want people to be converting them as soon as possible. So, I guess my research is pushing me to say I actually don't care about arms anymore. That's a weird
Oh,
thing to say. But, well, most tourniquets will work on most arms because people have, the smaller limbs are just easier to occlude. Plus, the brachial artery is fairly close to the surface. It's just not that hard to stop flow in an arm. So when people, they take a tourniquet, they put it on their arm, and then they feel for a pulse and there's no pulse. They say, oh, that got it. That's, to me, not a marker of a great tourniquet. It's just like, okay, well, yeah, good job. But it's legs where it really is hard. And circumference matters so much. So in my opinion, stop the bleed classes, any bleeding control classes should focus largely on legs. And if you have a leg that is 70 centimeters around, there's a high probability that whatever tourniquet you use either isn't going to work right away, or it may stop flow, but shortly after you're going to, regain circulation because fluids move. We're bags of fluid. And when you squeeze a limb, you have fluids moving proximal to the tourniquet and you have, well, distal to the tourniquet, you have bleeding. So you have volume reduction there and skin stretches too. And the tourniquet itself stretches. So over time, the pressure that's being delivered drops and pretty quickly. Uh, and and I used to think that there was some gray zone, like, oh, well, how bad is a venous tourniquet? But a venous tourniquet is terrible. Like, it's a really bad
mhm.
thing. You're no longer helping people. You're actually harming them because you are allowing blood out. You're not allowing it back and it hurts and you're actually accelerating bleeding. So, the way I think of tourniquets now is a little bit like intubation. I mean, I think that I would even say the majority of people who have tourniquets applied, they come in with palpable pulses. There's an analogous thing. If if everybody who was intubated had actually an esophageal intubation, that is a similar thing in my mind. You're actually harming people. And so I think we should be teaching about tourniquet conversion pretty much in every bleeding control class now. I think it should be a standard part of education. And so yeah, that's in my head, and I think other people are uh, coming to feel similarly about tourniquet conversion. It's a less threatening step too. I'll add this. I mean, just run two different scenarios through your head. You have a wound. It's not a complete amputation, mangled limb, and that sort of thing. And that's not, if you have just a grossly destroyed limb, use a tourniquet. That's fine. But if what you have is a single hole, even if it's arterial, run the scenario through your head. One of them is elastic directly over the hole versus inelastic proximal to the hole. And as you lose blood, one scenario gets worse and the other scenario gets better. The scenario that gets better is the direct pressure over the hole. And
Mm.
so I think our bleeding classes, the drumbeat should be towards direct pressure. Um,
I,
yeah,
I definitely agree that any stop the bleed, you get taught how to do a tourniquet, and you should immediately be taught signs and symptoms of how to take it off and how to reduce the damage, well, the permanency of what you just did. I think even at the stop the bleed, you should be taught in combat lifesaver and EMT level. Definitely, yeah. Here's a tourniquet. Put it on. Great. Now let's talk about when you need to take it off.
yeah, yeah. I think it should be part of the class.
And the direct pressure was working. I mean, obviously, tourniquets have saved countless lives, and I'm all for it. But in the 80s and 90s, when I first joined the sheriff's department and the army, tourniquets were definitely not allowed. And we were
Yeah.
only allowed to stuff fluffy things into the
Mhm.
bleeding hole and put pressure on it. And it worked most of the time. And when it didn't work, it was bad. But it wasn't until, what, 03, 04, 05, I was teaching with Deployed Medicine International with Doc Hagman, and the NATO tourniquet finally came in, was the first one that we started using. And they finally came back
Yeah.
after being gone for 3 decades.
Yeah, no, I recognize that they've saved lives, helped a lot of people, and now it's a question of like how do we refine it and do it better. And I will say this, all of this I've gotten into sort of pouring silicone and modeling things and doing, well, other tests. Something I was not aware of is that depth of artery really makes a big difference. So, limb circumference is something that's obvious. You can see that. Depth of artery is not obvious. And so if you have a patient where you just can't get it to stop, um, that's something to consider. You may be just, it may not be possible to use that particular tourniquet in that spot. Also, the area of crunch makes a difference too. When I say area of crunch, I'm talking about like the cinch and the mechanism. There is one side where you get more crunch as opposed to the other sides. Position of tourniquet, I think, makes a big difference too. So there's a lot of nuance.
Is your current silicone research showing that putting the windlass of the tourniquet over top of the vessel still valid?
That's what I stand by that. I think it
All right.
I think it makes sense. I mean, I can show with my designs that if I orient it on one side, it'll stop flow, at least on the superficial tubes. And if I orient it on the other side, it won't stop flow. And so, it's very hard to do these tests on, live humans. And I think that's what makes it challenging. So it's, I think, making models and coming up with models that come closer and closer to reality. It's helpful.
We were taught that one tourniquet could be good, but two tourniquets side by side effectively become one big tourniquet, and it's less pain and more effective. Are you finding that true in your models?
I don't know that I can prove that, but that's my belief. And if I was to use a second one, I would actually probably apply it off angle to the first. Like I wouldn't have the crunch at the same spot. I would try something, 45 or 90 degrees from the first one.
Is that for the crunch, or is that because the two windlasses interact?
No, for the crunch. Yeah. I'd be trying to get it, one of them at least to be landing directly over the femoral artery.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see a study, cadaveric study on that concept, and maybe TCCC concepts would change on that second tourniquet.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure what their current recommendation is for the second one. Do you know that where they say, do they say to put it exactly the same spot? Or
no, I could be wrong, Sam, but my readings and my teaching and my own classes I've been in, I haven't seen the differentiation on where that windlass is. And when I do teach offset because the windlasses do interact.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just one thumb width difference between the first tourniquet and the second tourniquet. And then sometimes you can't tighten the second one because the windlass is in the way.
Right. There is a phrase that I'm not a fan of, which is high and tight. I understand the reasoning behind it, but I would also just say high and tight and higher risk for lost occlusion, especially if you have a large limb or thigh in particular. Because if you think of a leg as almost like a cone, if you go way up high and you're in the 80 centimeter circumference range, there's a good chance it's just not going to work.
Really? So what we learned is wrong. That if you put the tourniquet mid shaft femur, you've got your quadriceps and your triceps, femoris in the way. And
even then, I'm not sure the right answer. I just because you have two different conflicting, two different changing variables. One of them is circumference, and the other is artery depth. So if you are high up, then the artery is actually closer to the surface. However, the circumference is higher, is larger there too. So it's a challenging question. And I just go back to find a way to get off the X quickly, and then find a way to convert quickly too. And measure your leg ahead of time. If you have a leg that's 80 centimeters, then you need a different plan. Like you should have a lot of hemostatics and direct pressure devices and you need a different plan for that leg, because I just don't believe that majority of tourniquets are going to occlude your leg.
Your high and tight comment, it made me think, Sam, as always when I talk to you. So the high and tight in inguinal ligament, your nerve artery and vein bundle is not on the bone. So is that why it's not as effective as midshaft? Because you have to put your tourniquet on, twist it until it hits the vessels, and then keep twisting it until that vessel gets pushed down into the femur bone.
So in my last model, what I did was I put a hole that was right close to the central PVC pipe anyway, and then one sort of midway and then another superficial. And depth makes a huge difference. So the superficial one actually kind of kinks. It pushes in a lot. The middle one is the next to occlude, and then the deepest one occludes last. And I don't think I think the depth just is the biggest factor. And so if you can get your leg to occlude with high and tight, having this cinch directly over the femoral artery seems to make the most sense to me right now anyway. But if you can tell, I'm still learning. Like, I'm still not sure what is best to say regarding use of tourniquets. But one thing I can say is when you use direct pressure, you always help. Like slowing the bleed is actually a good thing too. It gives time for vasospasm. It gives time for clotting. It doesn't accelerate bleeding. And so I think that aiming for that is a reasonable way to go for the general public who don't do this regularly. But if you're somebody that you're going into harm's way, then I think you want to have a plan for your own leg, which includes measuring the size of your leg and finding a product, like finding different products that work to stop flow on your own leg. Then and there.
Practice at night, practice when you're tired, practice, all the time.
Right. And I will say this, I think the idea of, having 20 tourniquets in your pockets and walking into some mass casualty setting and becoming a hero by just applying tourniquets all over the place it's just somewhat delusional because there is very little time. Like, one of my demonstration pieces is it shows that if you knock out a femoral artery and it's just openly bleeding, you've got 1 minute, maybe 2 minutes max. So if you are a paramedic who gets a call like, hey, there was a bad thing that happened, you got to get in your vehicle, go to that person, or maybe there is just no time. Like, probably by the time you get there, patient has expired. So tourniquets, I think, are largely aimed at you and then the buddy who's next to you. Otherwise, it's just time is just your enemy.
Well, it's interesting that you are making movement on the science behind that, and I'm very happy to see what you're doing, Sam, and the videos you're making and the concepts you're doing is going to make a difference.
Well, that's the case. I mean, I have a bit of a curse, which is I build things and I research them. And so anything that I say is viewed through the lens of bias. And so I just try to put out videos that it's almost like anything I say is biased. Anything that I put out there is biased. So essentially I'm trying to give the world my lab. Like, this is what I base my statements on, and you can judge for yourself, but this is where I come from with it.
So, speaking of innovations and improvisation and inventions, you and I have a product called the AirBase that is finally here in Europe, and it's been in the US for a year or so. Can you tell the audience what is the AirBase?
I will say the AirBase is your invention. So in roughly a year and a half ago, year and a half ago at Soma, we were chatting, and I said, "What do you got cooking?" And brought me to your booth there, and basically pulled out an inflatable packing material, and you had a straw, and you blew it up, and said, "Hey, how can we turn this into something that is helpful for people with hypothermia?" And I saw it, and my friend Phil Carey was there, and we were both like, "Dang, that is great." And so for probably a year after that, I came home and tried coming up with different ways to turn it into a product. And what that means is I had to figure out how much pressure it takes to blow something like this up. And if you just get that type of material over the counter, a lot of it you can't blow up by mouth. So I had to kind of buy a lot of different material and test this, test that. And then it was a matter of coming up with a source and then trying to decide on dimensions with you. And eventually, we got it packed down with Rescue Essentials to a size that, was pocket size enough. And like with my pressure wrap, where I've come to think of it as more of a fun device where where I can tow my kids on their bicycle. To me, the AirBase, I know you wanted to build something for hypothermia, but at the end of the day, it's a multi-tool, something that you can sit on at a football game. You can, you can lie down on it at an airport. You can cut it into little segments because each of the different cells are separate. You can just use it for many different things. You can make a splint out of it. And also it's for hyperthermia. So you were thinking about cold and that sort of thing too. But, in the desert, the sand is hot, the pavement is hot, and you can lie down on this on hot material and it'll, keep it from getting too hot as well. So, and when you're done with it, you can ship some goods with it. The shipping
Yeah.
material at the end of the day.
And I
So,
saw that you had
yeah.
a flotation device made out of the airbase.
Oh, I mean, I just I had fun with it. I basically put them on my arms and legs, or on my arms, and just made adult floaties out of it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
take the pressure wrap, put it over the airbase, and you've got some level of flotation. You get about, trying to remember, I think with one airbase, that will give you about 10 pounds of flotation, a little bit more.
It'll save a life if you ever fall out of something on the water, I
Oh
guess.
yeah, no, it'll be,
But
yeah. But you better, yeah,
yeah.
you got to have it inflated ahead of time. I would imagine it's hard to do while you're splashing about.
Yeah. So yeah, the airbase. So I like wine. I'm an Irish guy. I like wine. I like whiskey. And when it gets delivered, it came in this stuff,
Yeah,
this inflatable wrap. And so I got some that was uninflated, and I started playing around with it. And I made a full mattress, like the full body mattress. And you deflate your head as you try to blow that. You just can't.
yeah,
It's just
yeah,
way too big. So I found that 1 meter is enough for the upper body where you need it the most anyway.
yeah.
And 1 meter, anyone can inflate it in 5 breaths. And the Rescue Essentials. So I trusted your judgment on who to go through to get this published, to get this out.
Mm.
And Rescue Essentials has done a fantastic job, and they've looked at the flame retardant capability of it, the R factor, which is 0.75, I think it came out to be.
No, the R value
Or is
was
that 0.7?
1.23 actually, 1.23.
1.23.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you guys found all these technical details that I never would have thought of. I'm like, hey, put this yoke under you and save a life. That
yeah.
was
Right,
kind of the
right,
concept.
right.
But you came up with all the needed items on the back end. So I had submitted a patent, which was rubbish. I think you had a laugh when you saw that, and
Oh,
you quickly put in another one for me.
yeah. Well, I would not say I had a laugh on it. It's more of it's just hard to. IP is a very challenging topic, and so I've submitted some provisional patents, and that gets you a year of protection. Um, but the non-provisional patent is something that you want to do, with a lawyer. Uh,
Hmm.
and I would never try to do that myself.
Yeah. So I had no idea, Sam, the length and depth that's needed to put something that you invent into the hands of the people you invented it for. So I came up with this because of it was wintertime, and I knew that people were fighting on the front in the east, and on snow, and they needed something to keep. And of course, there's blankets that are better and thermarests that are better, but one thermarest is €100, and then it's gone. It's your thermarest, and now it's
Yeah, right.
at the casualty collection point.
Yeah,
So having something that's cheap, and you can have. I got 100 in my room right now that doesn't take up much room at all,
right,
and
right.
hopefully this can make a difference. And then you guys going through all the U.S. side of things and finally getting the EU side of things, and now we have them here after you said a year and a half. You and I have been talking about this, and it's
Yeah,
finally here in Europe.
long path. Yeah, I will say this one thing I absolutely love about the product is I'm a relatively creative guy. I can't think of a way to hurt people with it. Like that's the every time I build a medical device or think about something, I think about also what are the ways that I can harm somebody with this thing. And, similar to my thoughts on direct pressure for bleeding, I feel the same with this. It's a, you may not stop the bleeding, all of it with direct pressure, but at least you're slowing it down. And in this case, you are making people more comfortable. You are slowing heat transfer to the dirt, and you can't even suffocate somebody with it. Is like intentionally? How would you try to hurt somebody with? It's just hard to do.
Oh yeah, it's long and flat.
Yeah, long,
Yeah,
right,
with
right,
ridges. So
with
so even
ridges,
if you
right,
fall
right.
asleep with your mouth on the mattress, there's a ridge, or you're breathing through
You
anyway.
really have to work hard, right, right. So
Yeah.
and mind you, like there are numerous products. Like I hope you don't take offense to this, but I also jokingly call it the better than nothing mat. It is, but it's considerably better than nothing. So, think about, um, your tongue and a flagpole. So you can get your tongue very close to a cold flagpole and it's not an issue. But the second you make contact with that you have conduction, that's conductive heat transfer and, or freezing. Maybe that's a better way to say. And this just, it's something that is up against conduction. And I think that's a great thing to have. I mean, you can have all the space blankets in the world. You can get all of these different things on top of you, but until you put something between you and the earth, um, it's hard to keep people warm, um, and comfortable too. Like there's another whole world of medicine that you and I haven't really talked about here yet, but that's like the backboards. People are becoming less and less excited about having patients on backboards. I just think one of these should be between every patient, every backboard, because, backboards are hard. They hurt. They're uncomfortable. Just have a little, something to take the edge off. And,
Even a talon stretcher can be uncomfortable.
yeah, sure. That's right. And, so, I think it just our mission is to take the edge off, the human condition a little bit. So hopefully this does that.
I've been teaching for 20 years now in NATO and US and non-military as well. And it always bugs me. My eye twitches a bit when I'm teaching and they cover the casualty with an HPMK or a blizzard bag. You know what? They're fantastic. But then
Up above.
yeah. So I feel good. Everyone feels good except the patient, because the patient looks like he's covered or the blizzard bag, which I'm fond of. It's got 3 layers of cover. It's good, but it's too expensive. But so the blizzard bag is brilliant. If you wrap the whole casualty in a blizzard bag, they lay on it, they squish the 3 layers, so there's no air between, and they continue to lose heat. But my medic feels good. I feel good. Everyone in the scenario is thinking, "Oh, this is brilliant." It isn't,
Right,
and
right.
this is one reason I bought this. Or I created this because I kept getting cross and angry at my casualties getting cold.
Well, you'd be surprised also to see a picture of a space blanket or against a person. If you do sort of IR imagery, I have an app or a phone device that lets me do that. And the areas where the space blanket makes contact with the patient, it's just like a river of heat coming through. And so down below, if you are lying on the blizzard or igloo or a space blanket or whatever it might be, if it's completely compressed, then, the heat is just transferring straight to dirt. So, that feature of the AirBase, I think it's just complementary with all of those other devices. And mind you, there are a good friend of mine, Colin Smart, like this has been his mission.
I know Colin. He's a good lad.
Yeah, he's great. And he has built a wonderful system for hypothermia. Like he can keep people warm. That is, he walked from one side of Greenland to the other side. He knows this area. And his point is, I think they have a TSG is his company. Are we being serious? And he really dislikes the simple space blanket because it doesn't work all that well. It's not very effective. And And to me, I think that the airbase is a nice complementary thing that you will have in your pocket. If I can have his product, if I can have the extract, if I can have something thicker, a thermarest, then, by all means, that's great. But having something that is nearby in your IFAC, is, again, it's the better than nothing mat. And I think it's a good thing to have in addition to, other
Yeah,
things.
it's good, better, and best, right?
That's right.
So you as an emergency doc, you have a bear hugger in the emergency room
Yeah.
that has evidence behind it. It's the best thing out there. Awesome.
Yep.
This is what we want. Oh, I'm not carrying that. I'm not going to
Yep.
jump out of an aircraft with that.
Right.
And the extract or the igloo inflatable hotels that they have, lovely, but I'm just not going to have that in my
Right.
kit. And
Right.
I needed something to fill the gap between the good and the better. And
Yep.
I think the airbase, you and I have created the good, at the minimum, the good. And of course, we should aim for the best. We should aim for the Hilton Hotel in the presidential suite. Put my casualty there. That'd be brilliant.
Yep.
But we don't have that. And the airbase was something that we created that is the size of a pack of cigarettes, maybe. I can't even, no one knows what that is anymore. Sorry. But half of a paperback book. So two of them could easily fit in a paperback book, and you're going to have that in your kit. You're going to, the ruck truck house phase, you're going to have it in each one of those. And then once you get to the truck phase, yeah, I'm sure that the tier 1 group or the TSG or the Eagle, all these guys that have the better option, that's in the truck. Yes, absolutely have that. But when you're on the ground waiting for casualty collection point in Ukraine for 7 hours, the high-end stuff is rubbish because it's 25 kilometers away.
Yeah, I think that this, my mind often goes back to the topic of bleeding, but when folks are comparing tourniquets, cost and bulk aren't factors that I think are considered as much. And to me, cost is a big factor. Like, it has to be affordable and it has to be compact and light enough so that people actually have it near them when the problem occurs. And there's another. I will throw this other thing. I show the airbase to a special forces guy, another person in Germany. His mind went straight to snipers. He was like, "Oh man, I could use that to just to lie on for a prolonged period of time."
Actually, two of them. One to lay on because you're face down, and the other one to prop your torso, because I've been on hide sites and sniper sites, and it's just so painful to be laying on your belly for 16 hours a day and having, two of them. So one to lay on and the other one to prop up a bit.
Right. There is a question of, whenever I build something, whenever I work on whatever it might be, folks will come up with, show me the data. And that is one of the most challenging things for certain products. Other products, it's easier. So when it comes to a tourniquet, you can show data. You can be like, all right, well, this stopped flow, and you can actually have an image of Doppler ultrasound, see that there's no flow, and then turn that into a paper, and that is data. But with gray area things like direct pressure devices or, the airbase, like, a little bit of R value is better than a little less, and so it's harder to put that in a paper. But what I do tell people who say, "Show me the data," is I say, "Here, let's go onto a concrete floor. You lie down on this thing and put your elbows onto the concrete, and you tell me the difference. Like, that's your data. You will feel a lot more conduction through your bare elbows into the floor than through your back." And when you do that test, it's very clear. Like, this thing is slowing heat loss to the ground. So it's but hard publishing that.
Patient comfort is harder to prove, and a lot of the prolonged field care skills, people like, well, show me the evidence. Well, the patient feels better. There's a quantitative need for research, and then the qualitative comments of, "Oh, I feel better." It's just not hard science, is it?
Well, those things get that. I can apply that to traction splints. I can apply that to pelvic binders as well. We do an awful lot of things that are aimed at helping people feel better, just take the edge off for people. But the stuff that gets published is more quantitative. So, when it comes to traction splints, people do research on how many liters of blood needed to be transfused. And if you look at all the literature, traction splints, there wasn't much difference. So if I have a patient who comes in with a traction splint or not, how many liters of blood do they need? There's not much difference. Therefore, the traction splints aren't needed. But at the end of the day, I don't actually care. Patients who have traction splints on feel better, depending on the splint. I'm a little biased here too, if you can't tell. But it's hard doing that study because you have a miserable patient, and you're not going to. People go long careers without seeing a lot of femur fractures sometimes. So it's hard to put into a paper that this traction splint was radically better than that one for pain reduction. So it's. I think there's objective and subjective data. And I guess I focus on products with a little too much subjective variables.
There's a problem with the IRB. So whenever we do research, we need to have an IRB approval and justified. Otherwise, we're back to World War II. I'm trying to think of for the AirBase, what kind of study could we do? And I haven't. This is one product I haven't done any research on. I've done tons of research on all sorts of other things. To go to the College of Remote and Offshore Medicine's ethical review board and say, tell you what, I want to go to Tanzania and have 50 casualties laying on a hard surface and 50 casualties laying on my airbase, and let's collect data. I would be appalled of that research. You can't do that. So how do you? Yeah, the challenge, Sam, is when you're dealing with a non-quantitative research product, which I think this airbase that you and I have created is a qualitative product. How do we prove that?
So another good friend of mine, Nilesh Vasan, he made a product called the V-Scope, and we've talked about this at length. Evidence-based medicine has its limitations, and at the end of the day, not everything has to have a paper. Sometimes you can use your brain too. And I'm not aware that there is a paper out there that tells me that a spoon is better than a fork for eating my morning Cheerios. It just is. It works. And all I got to do is lie down on an airbase and lie down on an icy ground. And that's all the evidence I need. Like, I don't need more than that. And so
yeah, fair enough.
There's some things that just, it works, and let's go with it.
I don't know if a journal would accept a paper of ours that we put together and said, we had 500 people, 250 laid down on concrete and 250 laid down on concrete with our airbase, and 100% p-value said approval. Yeah, that's not science, but it's
an
science.
Absurd study. Right. No, it's an absurd study, and it also is something that wouldn't get accepted. And especially because it's from us too. So that's the other catch, is that you and I, anything we publish is biased and not going to get accepted. So we just have to, kind of hope that other people will find different ways to research them and come up with conclusions.
Now that it's available, we hope people will grab it. I will be donating a couple hundred of these to Ukraine, and I may not hear anything back, but it doesn't matter. I know that this is going to make life a little better for those on the ground, but hopefully that will have some case reports or something like that, because I know the airbase is helpful for a lot of things, but I made it, my whole concept was to keep the cold casualty off the snow.
Yeah. And I think it's going to help all of the people that you give them to in Ukraine. But what I can say is, like, they have other fish to fry. Like, you are going to get very little feedback on it unless you know directly the people who are getting them. When the war started out, we sent 3,000 of the pressure ups over, and I think I got 2, maybe 4 photos of people using them to, on sprained knees and that sort of thing. But they have other fish to fry. And think about it. If you're fighting a war, like, you're not thinking about getting photos to the inventor of a product. You're going to use whatever that product is, and then get off the X. So we're not gonna hear back on those 200. I don't think.
No, but that's precisely what I want them to do: is get off the X, do the job, and hopefully save a life.
Yeah. Yeah. This is from my vantage point, like I'm far away from that conflict and I follow it daily. And I think it's a motivator for me in terms of building things. Like I feel like this is the way that I can contribute from a distance. I got to chase my kids around. I got to do my activities of daily living, but building things that might help folks over there is, it's compelling to me.
It keeps me up at night and makes me jump out of a bed bushy-eyed and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and just
right.
trying to push science forward. And I respect that this is your passion as well.
Yeah. Oh, it's been an honor getting to know you through this. This has been a real pleasure.
So, Sam, and I've asked you before in the last podcast, but I'm hitting you again on this one. My final question for you is this. What advice do you have for the remote medic, the nurse, the doctor who is just starting out on their career in austere medicine?
You asked me this before, and I hate to say the same thing, but I will, keep your eyes open for things that bother you, where you might be able to make a change. Because we feel like this is how it's always been done. This is how our seniors are teaching us. Surely someone else has thought of this before, but whenever there's a pain point, something that bothers you, probably it bothers other people too. And just, obsess about it, dwell on it for a long time. And I don't think I said this previously, but I really dislike the phrase standard of care. I question it. Whenever somebody shuts you down with that's just the standard of care, just run through your head. Sam in that podcast said I should think about that twice, because standard of care is it's a moving topic. It changes. I have had a standard of care in one hospital. I go to another hospital and it's a different standard of care. A lot of times it's, what drug rep lives closest to that hospital. And so I think those are things that I would keep in mind for future medics, for new medics.
That's a good advice. And I see that in myself of whilst teaching nowadays, now that I'm pushing 60, and looking at the standard of care that our students give. And then my mind is inquisitive enough to say, well, that's just not good enough. How can we make this better? How can the remote medic have skills and improvisations and learning and education degrees to be better and to raise that standard of care, even though we work in an austere environment?
Well, think about 100 years ago or 50 years ago, how much has changed. So we have so many more tools, so many more things to work with. Oh, I'm going to throw this other thing out. You know what? I am going to say this. Get a 3D printer. Get a sewing machine. Like those things have changed my life. So that is probably a more concrete thing to say to new medics. It's just been wonderful to have those tools.
I'm with you with the 3D printer, and I can't quite get a kitchen pass yet to buy one. And it's a space thing more than the cartridges are like $300 each. But I'm working with a local guy, a German guy who's also an engineer. That I'll give my concepts to him, and before he prints them out, he'll have a go. And between the two of us, we'll improve it, and then he prints it and ships it to me. But it'd sure be a lot easier if I had a 3D printer.
The price, so $300 you said, but it's even lower now. Like you can get by with considerably less. I use something it's called a CR10, and that I think you can get those on eBay for probably $150 now. They are cheap. This area is available to anybody now, and it's an interesting thing to watch.
One of the studies that I have lined up on my Trello list is a feasibility study of what could you print in an austere clinic or a CCP with power and you said $150 printer. What could you print? And that's there are some topics out there, but no one has done a feasibility study on, is this a good option for the austere medic?
That would be a fascinating thing to consider. I look forward to watching that space develop. Because I can print a lot. Like I think it's more than just the printer. You got to have someone who can use it and knows how to debug it. But if you have someone competent, you can print a lot of different very helpful things.
Plus the variables of content to print on. Like you this local German guy, Martin. He's kind of given me an education of, oh, you need this, that, or you wanted to have it this way, and I didn't realize the different. Do you call it ink? The plastic reels of
the filaments, right?
The filaments and that makes a huge, because he's printed us some stuff, and he's like, try this out. It's I'm designing a hematocrit, improvised hematocrit spinner in plastic.
Nice.
And I'll try this out. Yeah, it broke immediately. Okay, well, let's try something else. Right. So there's a lot of science, and you're getting a PhD in printing.
Well, I am using a resin printer now too, and the strength and resolution that I get from that thing, and that only cost me $250. It's almost never off now. I'm printing things constantly with it, and like I showed you a windlass a couple of years ago, right? I keep iterating.
You attach it to your
to the wrap,
your swing.
Right?
Yeah,
right. And I can make something that it's very strong. I mean, it's not perfect. I don't know if they're sellable, but it'll work. And so, and the sky's the limit as far as ways to make it thicker, stronger. You can use different plastics, different resins. You can make it bendy. It's a deep rabbit hole to explore.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, Sam, we've done it again, mate. We've spent almost an hour having a chat about passions of ours.
Hard to believe, 1 hour.
Yeah.
Well, always a pleasure, Aebhric. Always a pleasure.
You keep impressing me. You challenge me, brother. I see what you're doing, and it keeps me going. I'm like, I need to also push evidence forward, like my friend Sam.
Appreciate that. Thanks very much, Aebhric. Yeah.
Thanks for being on our podcast again.
Yeah. See you in Soma, if not sooner.
See you at Soma.
This has been a presentation from the College of Remote and Offshore Medicine. If you would like to earn CPD credits for this podcast, you can join the Council of Members. Being a member of the college gives you free CPD credit, free access to our virtual field guide, and discounts on our e-learning courses. You can join the team on our college website at quorum.edu.mt.